Uranium stocks actually closed green today with the overall market down, especially in the United States. We're going to look at the big funds buying uranium stocks across the world. In Australia, I've got the data for that and show you where to find it. Here in the United States, just in the last few days, big updates, and I'm going to touch on a wide variety of some other bigger uranium stocks for you guys. And a lot of crazy things are happening overall and around the world. Nuclear energy is really needed. The cost of electricity has gone up in France over 600 euros for next year for the baseload power futures, and it's proving that we need nuclear energy. Now, I'm also going to look back at some of the videos that I did on 4 uranium stocks this year and how much they're up. Some of them are up 30 to 60%, and I want to just show you that. We also got the European numbers for uranium, how their contracting is for the year, what their numbers were. We're going to go over that. We got the video to 1,000 likes, but we did not get it done last night. So I think you guys can get the 1,000 likes in this video. Comment your like and go ahead and just throw up some of these stocks that you currently own, and maybe I'll look at them, maybe I'll cover them. A lot of people are asking me to cover some new stocks. Before we jump into the hedge funds that were buying certain uranium stocks, I just want to show you, I looked back and I wanted to see, this year I did the video, my top 4 uranium stocks. It's a deep coverage video, and I go into why these 4 stocks I believe could have good upside. Now, LEU Sense is already up 65%. Energy Fuels about 35, and then UEC is about 30, and then Cameco 17%. So you can go ahead and check out that video. I'll have it linked up above. Once you're done with this video, you're going to want to watch this whole video. But I just want to show you guys that when I talk about stocks, especially uranium, you might get tired of uranium stocks, me talking about them, but I know that there is value there, and I can just show you that. That was literally done back in July, and now it's August. So not too long ago, just a few weeks time, that's the gains that you can have in uranium stocks. Now, France, their baseload power for next year is like 600 euros for their futures. This is just record prices. And this is because the nuclear plants have been down and they're importing electricity. But this is showing that power for the year for nuclear is really needed. And all these reactors that are going offline that aren't going to be in the data that I'm showing you later about the contracting that they have secured in Europe, those reactors coming back up, they're going to need fuel, more than likely. A lot of those, they didn't renew them. This is kind of crazy to see France pushed off top spot as Europe's biggest exporter of power. They're having to import all that power now, and they lost it because of the heat wave. And France, they have 56 nuclear reactors. So they normally can export that to Germany. And that's what we're seeing with these record prices. And it's just going to get hotter this summer, and these prices are going to go up. Inflation is going to go up. And it's going to really show these countries that they need nuclear. IEA sees Russia oil output down 20% when EU ban takes effect. So remember, a lot of this stuff, these bans, a lot of these things do take some time. But I think that it's really going to start to wreak havoc across the world very soon. Now, when we saw that 1970s, and I want to show you guys the visual, and when we were in the 1970s going through with reactors in the US, bringing them up, these are the numbers here. And you can see UK right below, 24, 25, 26, 27, 31, 32, 33. By the end of 1979, they already had 33 reactors. US was going up at a higher rate, 14, 18, 21, 29, 38, 50, 53, 62, 64, 69. That wasn't the only country. We see Germany, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 16, 18. When we go to these numbers in a minute in Europe, a lot of what they're saying is a lot of their contracts are secure. And we knew this would never be the reason for the uranium bull market is not for Europe. It's really an Eastern play. It's that demand that we just saw there coming in the future for the East, because these reactors are coming up fast in the East, just like that. Now, these are the coverage rates for natural uranium from 2022 to 2030. This for Europe. For the overall uranium market, they're a smaller percentage. It's like 18% or so. It's like, I think it's 111 reactors total, but percentage-wise, demand, it's not even over 20%. They don't use as much as obviously the rest of the world, but they do rely on Russia a lot. But their coverage rates right now for natural uranium, they're going to be around 80-something%. Now, this data, I think, because we're talking about some reactors that aren't even in the EU anymore when this came out, and we're also talking about some that might be coming back up, this data, I think, is going to change. So what they say is the uranium inventories can fuel the EU utility nuclear power reactors for 3 years on average. Now, what you can see here is their natural uranium inventories have fell very fast. This is 2021 right here. I don't think that these numbers down here are as accurate as what they're portraying. We know these governments, they're not very good at energy management and energy policy. as we can see. There's record-breaking prices I just showed you. So I think that not only can they will probably be the first ones to get any issues with their fuel contracts from Russia, Rosatom, before probably the US. And it was 31% that they got their enrichment from Russia, right? So that was 2021. So if anything happens to that, it's still going to cause a panic. Now, these were the countries that provided conversion services. This is for the EU. So Orano, they provided about 28%. This is 2020. And in 2021, it went up to about 30%, 31. Cameco was about 26% in 2021. And it actually went down, okay? Because 2020, they had more. And Rosatom, this is the big one, 25% in 2021, but it actually did go up from 2020. And their Converden was about 14%. And before that, it was actually a little bit higher, 15% in 2020. And then the unspecified stuff only accounted for about 5% this year, which means they're starting to look for diversified supply. Now, the origin of the uranium deliveries, you can see this is Russia's ally as well, Kazakhstan. It's a very big part. And it's still going to be pretty crazy. You see Russia here, you see Kazakhstan, and it's such a big part that if any of this gets cut off, it's going to wreak havoc. And the 5 big producing countries provided more than 96% of all the natural uranium. This is supplied to the EU. That's the official number. And Uzbekistan was also, a small part. Russia was one of the biggest, and Kazakhstan. And the overall amount was about 11,975 tons. And like I said, this is not as big in terms of the entire world, but it is nice to know their numbers. And the increase from Russia, this is what is alarming, was 14% just by Russia. Now, the contracts specifically in the EU, they had a total of 69 in 2021 natural uranium contracts, amendments to the contracts, of which 27 were concluded and registered. Of the 23 new purchase sell contracts, 15 involved the EU utilities, and the remaining were signed by EU intermediaries or producers. And as you can see with the numbers the last 2 years, a lot of contracts concluded 2021. So we're starting to see more volume, obviously, in these contracting starting. And a lot of these contracts, they want 10 plus years out. And with this energy crisis, even if they are saying that they are secure and their contracts are filled for the next few years, they might actually start to make more at these prices. Now, the requirements are what they're saying from 2022 to 2031 is about 12,000 tons a year. That's gross. And then they're saying it's going to go down after that. And enrichment, it's about 10,000 plus SWU for the same period that I said. And then they're saying it goes down to about 8,000. Now, the amount of natural uranium that was loaded into the reactors in 2021 was about 16,000 tons. I also said this, which is alarming. Overall deliveries of natural uranium to EU utilities are well diversified, but a number of utilities buy their natural uranium from only one supplier. And if that one supplier has issues, that one supplier happens to be Russia and it gets cut off, then we're going to see the biggest energy crisis of all time. And they're going to go back into the markets and the prices are already going to be going up for other reasons. Remember, this is not even in the part of the uranium bull market. This type of demand is not even what the thesis is really all about. And they did go on to say in here that some of the things that they can do is look for new contracting, diversify the supply, and go into mining and invest in mining and, enrichment and production. So that's something that we're probably going to see more of. A lot of the US, legislation is going towards billions and billions of dollars for this, for the production side. That's why uranium stocks are going to do really well, because they're going to be investing in this type of stuff. Now, if we want to see what big companies were investing, say in Centrus Energy, LEU, why it went from, $88 just recently last year, it's high, down to 17 this year, and then back up almost to 47 today. We can see that there's about 79 funds altogether. When it started, when I invested, there was only about 24 funds. Now, the biggest market value we've seen, this was last year, end of last year, we saw 41 million. And we also saw BlackRock was one of the bigger investors, Vanguard, those two companies. And this was actually almost when it was going down, they were buying. Now, $21 million, this stock really trades. It's not very liquid. It's very volatile. And just reporting, we can see a lot of these companies, they weren't crazy amounts being sold, but there were shares being sold, and that's really why this stock goes down. I don't think it's really retail, buying and selling. It's normally these companies that are the ones really moving it. And we're still kind of low here. 79 is very low for a company bringing in $300 million of rev. It's going to get crazy when they start to really bring in big investors coming in this company. And that's kind of why we've been seeing the run from 17. I think that's starting to come back. And we'll probably start to see some bigger funds coming in. That's LEU. Now, Energy Fuels, there's another one. They've got about 159 funds that are holding. Now, just recently, there are a mixture of companies buying and selling. There are a good amount on here that have just reported not too long ago. It's still not crazy big amounts, but all added together, it is. Now, the volume is usually pretty good on these stocks as far as the US producers, Energy Fuels, and UEC. And these are some of the biggest shareholders. And when the stuff was happening in Russia, we saw a lot of buys and a lot of sells during that time. So that was why the stock went up 10, 11 bucks, back down. And then now we're starting to do our move back up again. There's the Uranium Fund. They bought and sold some uranium stocks. They actually added and bought UEC. They bought Energy Fuels. And they did sell URA and URNM. Now, if we're looking at a fund in Australia, Mike Alkin, Sachem Cove. But I can see what they have had last year when they reported in Australia and what they were getting rid of. So they got rid of Boss. This was back 2021. This was back in September, which was smart. This is around the highs when I was selling, We also saw them sell Paladin. There's a lot of big shareholders in that. And they had Vimy, about 20 million shares held at the time. This is only about 600,000. So this obviously isn't everything, but this is what we can see with reporting in Australia. Peninsula was pretty small as well. They did have Lotus. We also saw Bannerman. This was the holding date that we knew they had. This was only 300,000. This is a website. It's nice. 61 Financial. You can look it up. It is free in Australia. I like this. So if we go on some of these, now this big fund has been selling a lot of uranium. And this came out just not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. We can see all of these uranium stocks that they have here. Paladin, they sold 1 million shares. They also sold in Boss. Looks like they added to Deep Yellow. Bannerman, they sold their Bannerman. Peninsula sold some Peninsula. And the list goes on and on. ELA, they all sold. So remember, when a lot of this crazy volatility, the crazy volume is coming in these stocks, and I know you guys in Australia have been asking me to kind of cover them. It's probably usually the funds that are balancing their books. And obviously this fund is big. And this is not a crazy amount of money specifically just devoted to uranium. But you can see these type of things. And it is nice to keep an eye on. Now there's another one, Paradise Investments. This is in Australia. They bought a few and sold. They bought Boss Resources, just a small amount. This was when we had the war go on. But they did sell Paladin. Now, that's the one thing about Paladin. There's just so many big shareholders. A lot of those companies sometimes can just have issues with the way they trade, especially if you're trying to trade it. Energy commodities started to go up again today. We're still not seeing any real volume in the spot market. It's summertime. We knew that was going to happen. But crude oil bounced back up. Natural gas, as I was touching on earlier, we have this energy crisis, and it's going to get a lot worse. It's going to. The U.S. backs calls for demilitarized zone around Ukraine nuclear power plant, the State Department said. And Reuters reported on this. It said fighting near a nuclear plant is dangerous and irresponsible, and we continue to call Russia to cease all military operations at or near Ukraine nuclear facilities and return full control to Ukraine and support Ukraine's call for a demilitarized zone around the nuclear power plant, the spokesperson said. So it is on constant eye of obviously Washington, all around the EU as well. So is it possible we start to see other sanctions? These things are starting to go out. After Ukraine, is Kazakhstan next for the Kremlin site? Now, I started saying this in January. Now, there's a lot of videos that I did a lot of research posted in Russia in January. There was a lot of officials saying that they wanted Kazakhstan to come back to Russia. They basically said Kazakhstan was Russia. So a social media post from the former president in Russia, he gave a warning that the northern Kazakhstan could be next in line. Earlier in January, we're saying that it is going to be next. Now, who knows? There was the energy crisis going on, the prices and the riots, and then Russia came in. And I said back then that, this big world supply of uranium is definitely going to be a risk in the future. So these contracts are probably not going to go there, which means they're going to be higher priced, okay? Because these are low priced producers, Kazakhstan. And with inflation and all these things, they're going to have to raise their prices. But the big thing is they're going to go to producers that say, hey, we're not going to do those low prices. And they're going to be higher and higher. The thing I was talking about, uranium stocks in the US were up today. They were up a lot higher, but tech pulled them down. Now tech, everything did a real big run yesterday, right? Especially in the overall market. So we got the big vote tomorrow for the record energy bill on the House side. So a lot of stuff pulled back, but a lot of these bigger uranium stocks in the US, they still held their ground. LEU was up a good amount earlier and pulled back a little bit. But it is nice to see in the summer, like I've been saying, and we'll see tomorrow how things close. It'll be really bullish, I think, if you could see another green close. Now comment the number that you are, but also comment the stocks that you're looking at or you want me to look at, and I'll go ahead and check those out. And if you haven't already commented where you're from, go ahead and do that as well. I love reading. I love checking it out. So comment your stocks, comment your number,